Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. This is the first of our meetings. It's our Safety and Security Committee. So everybody please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, Mrs. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Geller. So this is our third safety meeting of the year. We have one more meeting in May, and we continue to be busy ensuring that our facilities are safe and that the protocols we follow as it relates to COVID and other things are appropriate. And at this point, I will turn it over to Mr. McAlevey to bring you an update as it relates to our technology and facilities. Sean?
Good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Burns. We have tonight's agenda. We're going to start off with the technology piece. We have the blue light system. So I'll just give everybody a quick update on the blue lights. They are fully functional. Well, they're up and running at the moment. However, we are still experiencing some phone line issues at a couple of the schools, Mattituck, Paul J. Blue, and Beach, to be exact. Those are getting worked on. Been working with Rihanna and IT to try to clear that up, but every other aspect of the system is functioning. So just keep in mind that if a blue light pull station is pulled, it will activate the system. It just will not make that 911 call to 911 at this time for those three schools. And we are working on that to get that corrected as soon as possible. I am meeting with Mr. Weber in the Media Center on Monday to film an instruction video for all the staff members district-wide. This video will go into detail on how the blue light system operates. I'll also give examples of when to use it and when not to use it. And I also had maps today. I have maps for every building principal with the pull stations on the maps. So I'll be handing those out to you guys so you can know exactly where in your school the pull stations are located. And you could provide your staff with those maps so they could realize how close the closest one is to their classroom. In the event they have to use it and there's an emergency, they actually know exactly where they are located throughout their building. They have been created. I'll get those out to all the principals tomorrow. I'll probably finish up with that on Monday morning. So that's the blue light system. It's where we are right now. Any questions about the blue light system? No. All right, moving right along. Cameras. A+ installed the camera on the guard booth. It's to the rear of the guard booth at the high school, and it's facing the main entrance at the high school. So the theory was when cars are coming and going through Lion's Path, when it's dark out, the headlights kind of black out that initial camera facing Higbee. And when they go past the booth now, we'll be able to catch the rear license plate going into the high school and any vehicles leaving the high school in the event we need to obtain that information. So that camera is installed, it's working, and we're very happy with that camera. There are a number of cameras in the district right now that I'm working with A+ to have relocated. Some cameras are covering the same area, and it's pointless to have them there. So Mr. Mullins and I have spoke about installing a camera at Bayview. We're on to that next. So we are shifting some cameras around the district that we don't need, that have already been paid for. We're just going to maximize on them. And that's all I have for the cameras.
Mr. McAlevey, before you move forward, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the concerns you raised regarding the blue lights and the ability for our staff and students to see them from the fields? I know we're having certain connection problems with the precincts, but beyond that, some of the other concerns that have been raised.
So we did a test run here at the high school with the blue light system a couple weeks ago, Rihanna and I, and we activated the system, we went outside, and it's very hard to see a little strobe light on the exterior of a high school, especially you have one strobe light on each side of the building, north, south, east, and west. And it's a really small strobe light. And during the daylight, it's very difficult to see. So my concern was if we have phys ed teachers or any teacher for that matter, especially during COVID when we're utilizing our fields more than normal, if they're outside on the fields and there's a lockdown event in the building and the blue light system is activated, there's really no way for them to know that there's an event going on inside the building, that really they should go the other way and not towards the school itself. So I had reached out to A+ to see if they make some type of siren that goes along with that strobe light to reach the fields where the staff might be having a class, to alert them rather than relying on someone from inside the building getting on the radio and screaming that we have a lockdown. It's just an extra measure. I feel like if you're outside, they're going to be kind of blindsided if there's an event going on in the building. So we are working on that to try to get a demo here at the high school with a siren to go with that strobe on the exterior of the buildings. That touches on that. So any other questions on the blue light? Nope. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to facilities. James Bossi has been helping me out with this. I want to thank him. We have ordered a bunch of signage for the district, and we're going to start with the guard booth at the high school. I'm not sure if you have all seen it already, but it's a stop sign on the guard booth, but it lights up. So at nighttime, you could see that bright red light shining at you. Just as a, warning to you guys that people drive straight. It's kind of a weird cutout around that guard booth. So it just kind of gets everybody's attention as they're coming down Lion's Path. But we installed that sign at the guard booth, and it was brought to my attention by Mr. Mullins about 3 weeks ago about do not enter and one-way signs in his bus circle in Bayview. And he doesn't have those signs. And I went around the district and I noticed that the majority of the schools don't have them. Beach Middle does, and there's two do not enter signs and there's one-way arrow signs. And we ordered those signs for the remainder of the district for their bus circles. So that is coming. Thank you, James, for that. They should be installed as soon as the snow melts. The buildings and grounds will be able to get out there and install those signs. So thanks again, James. But those will probably be in by the end of next week if the snow melts. That's it for facilities. Moving right along. Scholarship. Brianna, do you want to touch on scholarship real quick?
Sure. So we have scholarship right now as our visitor management, and the reason that we did purchase scholarship is because we knew that down the road there would be opportunity to expand in the schools using scholarship. And scholarship, what it does is it pulls the information from databases. So if we were able to do something like implementing scholarship at the high school to use with students, we could put kiosks at certain doors. So when students enter into the building, they would swipe their badge. It would register an Infinite Campus and know that they were there that day. It would also know if maybe they weren't supposed to be there that day. But there's a lot more that you can do with that. There's also the opportunity to put card readers in different locations. So if you wanted to install one by a bathroom, you could have students have to scan in and be able to enter in the bathroom. And it goes with a program too that helps you to track the movements of the students around the building. So with contact tracing and stuff like that, you would be able to understand, which locations did they go to the nurse? Did they go to the cafeteria, to the gym? In different locations, it would tell you when they came. You can have them swipe out to say when they leave. But it's something that a lot of districts are starting to use now. And we started the process last year in the anticipation that we might go this way one day. So the hardest part was getting the non-disclosure agreement with Infinite Campus, and Lisa DeCibio and I did that last year. So I've been in contact with them, trying to find out how would the students be able to still use our doors to enter in, like, let's say the senior doors. It would require us to get different dual frequency cards, but it's all stuff that's very doable. So, it's just something that's there. there if we wanted to maybe consider with what's going on with security and safety and also with COVID.
So as we prepare our budget, I'll ask Brianna to talk a little bit about the costs associated, but if this is something that people think would be of benefit to the district and to the high school, which is the primary area that we would implement it, then that's something we would need to discuss now as opposed to later. So what kind of costs are you talking about here, Rihanna?
So the startup costs for the first year are more than they would be for the second year. It would go through BOCES. It would be aidable, which is nice. But it's going to be somewhere in the $40,000 range. That's the kiosks, the software, all the hardware for the ID printing, all the IDs, the ribbon. They even give you badges. So when students come in late to school, you can give them late badges printed out right there from Scholarship, and that way you know they're late. It also lets you know if students are coming in the door and they're not swiping in, they have to punch in with their ID. It lets you notify the administration that those students do not have their IDs that day. So there's a lot of different things that we could do with it. But it does cost some money to start the implementation. But like I said before, it helps in other areas. You could take those kiosks and move them to a location where you have an athletics event and have students scanning as they come in to kind of know who was there. You could do the same thing at different locations like a library or something else, a school dance or anything else that's going to be going on in the future. So these are very versatile. You can move these kiosks anywhere.
Brianna, do you see this as something that could assist us with the possible full-time return of the students to the high school?
I think so. That was one of the reasons, one of the first things I thought about is what kind of technology would help us with getting the students back. And I think that something like this to help us with knowing who's in the building, where they're going, and when they're going helps us with that part of, kind of being accountable for people's location and knowing with contact tracing where everybody's been, who they've been in contact with. But I was also thinking about students that are not supposed to be entering certain locations. When students would go to enter into the cafeteria and it's not their lunch period and we know they're not scheduled, it would be a risk for us to let students, they would be able to enter to different locations. If you have the kiosks there, they would swipe their badge, it would come up and say, sorry, you're not scheduled for this period. And then the people there would know to turn them away.
So we're really looking at something for long-term use though, because by the time we would get this set up and running, it wouldn't probably be this year. First of all, it needs to go into the budget. And secondly, hopefully COVID will be behind us by the time this is up and running, but it needs to be something that would be useful. So I guess I'd like to open it up to the floor. Dr. Bridgman, what are the rest of you thinking? Those of you in the building.
I think it's good for the inside with regards to access to certain areas. They're very big on the cafeteria is one, the bathrooms. For entrance into the building, I think it might create an area with regards to congestion. Knowing how students get off the bus and they're right behind each other, it might be a problem in terms of, making sure we have the manpower to do that. But within the building itself, I think it'll be very helpful in terms of getting from different points in the building.
Yeah, the good thing is it's nothing that they have to really punch unless they don't have their ID. So most students would go and just swipe their badges, but that's why you would look at probably getting at least 4 kiosks so you could put them at, 4 different locations in the morning to kind of ease that traffic coming in and going out.
This is something that we don't plan on using right away, or what's the, probably a year, 2 years? What's the time frame?
Well,
So
I'm sorry, Rihanna, go ahead.
I was going to say, if there were the possibility to be able to maybe allocate some of the funds if they were available because of COVID and because of the benefit of this with contact tracing, that's why I brought it up now at this time. So my thought is if we did have something that we could get going for this year, I think it would be better. I've already reached out to these people. I've kind of kept in contact with them all year, just never knowing when this might come. And I did reach out and sent them one of our ID cards that was encoded. So we've gone back and forth with the process. And according to them, it would take somewhere around 4 weeks to get this off the ground if I turned around tomorrow and signed the paperwork with BOCES. So, it's something that if we did have the funds there, it's very possible to get this streamlined because we did so much work already in the past, just in anticipation that this could one day be where we go.
You said, you mentioned 40K for the first year. That's before the BOCES aid or after?
I think when I figured out the cost, the quote they give me does not include the BOCES fees they put in there. So I'm not sure what BOCES is going to charge on top of that. But like I mentioned, I know Elisa, you could probably share more about what we get back aidable from all of that. So there's a good percentage we would get back from that.
Right. It depends on the category and the coaster that it's in, because we have a various percentages. It can range as less than like 5% all the way up to 65%. So once we find out the coaster and we know what the fees associated with it are, we can determine what the actual aid we'll get back the following year would be.
And what are the approximate costs per year after the first year?
I think it drops down somewhere to maybe $10,000 or $12,000 and that's just mostly software. You get on-site support and all of that, and that includes training for the people that are going to be using it. So, and like I mentioned, it ties into our scholarship, which is really at the front entrance. So when kids are coming in the morning, they'll be able to also sign in there with the front desk person, as opposed to having to fill out passes, and then it just inputs their attendance right into Infinite Campus, as opposed to having to worry about writing out the pass, giving it to the student. It prints out the late badges. If you want, they can badge and then head over to where they have to go. So it gives you a lot of different things there that we can do with that.
Thank you.
Rihanna, does it also do for seniors if they have like early release or something like that? Because I've seen a couple of years ago, we went to Huntington High School, and when the seniors were leaving, they print out their schedule and everything. So they all knew who were leaving the building.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. So if you get the, it's called Sala, which is the software that goes with it that would track the students' movements throughout the buildings. So you'd know which locations, but as they would go to leave for the day, they would scan their badge at the door, and then it would pop up and say, this is your schedule. And that same thing happens when they try to go into the cafeteria or into the gym, wherever they'll say they would have one of those readers. And like we had mentioned, just, the immediate need we thought was, or my thought when I was talking, and Lisa and I were working on that portion of our possible reentry plan, was this would be more targeted to start with the high school, but this is something that I could see then in the subsequent year going to the middle school, in the same manner for the doors, knowing when the students are entering and leaving. Some people use this to track that kids got on the bus. So there's a lot of different things that school districts have used this for.
Rihanna, is the kiosk similar to what we have in the front of the building, or are these like little readers, like Easy Pass readers when they go through a toll?
Yeah, it's more like a Easy Pass reader. It's not like the kiosks in the front. Those are just they're barcode scanners that read the barcodes on driver's license. These are actually they're cards with two frequencies inside of it. So it has the two different ways it reads. So students would be able to access, let's say, an external door if they had to, but then also they would just walk by and swipe, and that's how it would pull up their information. But then again, like I said, if they don't have their ID with them when they come in, they would have to then press the keypad and put their information in using the keypad.
So is this something, do you think that we should get, is there more information you would like, something we should pursue, something we should put on the back burner? What are your thoughts?
I think we should gain some more information about it. I do think there will be a need for it, particularly like Dr. Bridgman said, inside the building with the cafeteria and the bathrooms, at the high school in particular. So I would say let's try to get as much information as possible and bring it to the table again.
So what kind of information would help to make a decision ultimately? And this, again, this would be, part of the budget process unless you wanted to move forward immediately, in which case, we'd have to see what we can do.
Well, I guess, Rihanna, I mean, it ties right into what we already have in scholarship, right? So it would be an easy transition. I guess we would have
right.
to.
According to scholarship, well, we talked to Infinite Campus already and said, really, what do we have to do to get this going? And they said, the non-disclosure, we already did that. They said, okay, so we're at the point that once you sign up, we should be able then to share your data because we have all the agreements in place. it would be something where we would just share our data with both sides. My thought is that it would probably take longer to get the hardware than it would just to get the program going. But even without the program going, just having the student data loaded in, I think then we would be able to use that at the front doors instead of having to wait until the kiosk got there for everybody else.
I-
I'm wondering about like the staff associated with ensuring that somebody swipes in. Is that necessary to have a person guiding the students? Or is it, I would think that would be part of this.
I know I used
Yeah.
it before in a previous school district where I worked, and the aides in the cafeteria, they were the ones in charge of it. And it worked quite well. You scan in, if you were not in the cafeteria, a big X came over your face. And, we got involved in terms of removing kids and stuff, but the aides were the ones in the cafeteria maintaining it.
Right. And I know in other districts too, they have security at the door, and they're the ones that are just kind of monitoring, just reminding students to sign in, but really they don't pass those few points. And if you look at the entrances of the high school, students come in the back, students come in the front. So really those are the only areas you're going to need those kiosks. So if you have 2 and 2, I think it gives you plenty of flexibility there to be able to have somebody sit there and as kids are coming and remind them to swipe.
My question logistically, because I put these systems in corporate buildings, do we have a need to track kids in the cafeteria? I mean, is that what we're looking to do here? I mean, is that a need that we have?
We do have from time to time students trying to get to the cafeteria when they don't have lunch. They should be in class. So I think that will help us to know where students are instead of trying to get to the cafeteria and stuff.
Right. And if we're also doing the contact tracing right now, saying, well, these students are the only ones who are in the cafeteria, and somebody enters that you don't realize, this could also deter some of that. And also let you know that this student was in fact in the cafeteria, or they tried to make entry and they were denied because everybody, the big X came up and said, you're not supposed to be here this period.
I think the bathrooms are an issue too. Like, they tend to be hangout spots for frequent flyers. So I think that could be a deterrent for them as well. And that ties into the whole bait system that we got going on too. We kind of monitor who's going in and out of those bathrooms and see who's in there if we get a vape hit from one of those monitors as well.
I just think logistically with 1,600 people in the building, there's a lot of enforcement that goes around this too. And does that distract from the day-to-day of running the school? I mean, I only speak from experience of the corporate world, and with adults, putting systems in like this was really years to get it up to where it needs to be. And if it's not something that we need today, just, and the technology changes so quickly with these systems, but that's just my thought. I mean, unless we've got gaping problems that we need to track people, that would be my only concern. Like, it's an extra layer, which could require people to track it, people to watch them swipe. That's my only concern. I'd love to see it in action if they had a video or anything.
Maybe we can see if we can get a little demo from the perspective of trying it in the bathrooms. I think that is one of our more critical areas. And if we can test it out like we did the vapes on a small scale and see how that goes. About that. Is that your biggest area, biggest area of concern, Dr. Bridgman?
Yes, for me right now, the bathroom. And at times it's not necessarily even the vape, but we have a number of students, they just feel okay to just go and hang out in the bathroom. I mean, you may find 6 or 7 of them that said we can't talk in the hallway, we can't do this in the bathroom is where we find it's a place to talk. So.
And it's always something in those bathrooms. I mean, going back to, 1960.
All right,
Yes.
well, let's look into maybe getting a demo or trial of some kind, possibly. I think Ms. McCann's concerns are definitely valid. We may put these in and then find that we really can't maximize their utilization because we don't have the staffing available for it.
Valid point. I agree with that. So we're working on getting a demo for the high
Okay.
school.
Mr. McAlevey has been carefully assessing the staffing throughout the district, and one area of particular attention has been the high school. So, Mr. McAlevey, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the adjustments you're looking to make there?
Yes. So when I started, I guess I'm on my 3rd month now. I realized that all the elementary and middle schools have the same safety officer assigned there Monday through Friday, and I'm almost certain that every principal is happy right now with their guard staff at their schools. And then when we came to the high school, there was a lot of mixing and matching. We had 8 to 9 security officers Monday through Thursday. Then we had 7 officers on Friday. We had 1 officer working Monday, another officer working Friday, and it was a lot of piecing together of the schedule. So I'm getting more in line with the rest of the district in putting together a steady security team Monday through Friday with the same personnel, which, you know, will make life easier for Dr. Bridgman and his staff at the high school as well. When you see the same faces every day, it helps strengthen the continuity between the students, the staff, and the security department. So that's a change that I've made at the high school. So we Monday through Thursday, we had 8 to 9 security officers at the high school and 1 district-wide floater. And at that floater bounces around throughout the school day to all the schools, checking the exterior of the properties, and comes back to the high school. When I inquired about the staffing when I first got here, I was told that last year they brought on a couple extra security officers during the environmental cleanup to help out with traffic and security at the high school. So that's where we got to the number 8 and 9 from Monday through Thursdays. So I think with Fridays at 7 officers, my belief is that 7 security officers Monday through Friday, the same 7 officers Monday through Friday, is more than enough to provide a high level of security at the high school. I don't really think we need 8 and 9 officers. That gives us 1 safety officer at the booth in the front, 1 at the main lobby doors, 1 in the exterior that hangs out in the senior lot, and it gives us 4 within the building at any time to help out with the hallways, the bathrooms, and other things of that nature. So that is what's happening at the high school. And Dr. Bridgman, I provided Dr. Bridgman and his staff at the high school, I created posts for all of these guards and call signs, and Dr. Bridgman has all of that to build that continuity. Now, my going into the satellite offices on the agenda kind of plays a role into this whole staffing thing district-wide. So my vision for the district is we have a steady staff at the high school and a steady staff at every middle and elementary school. So the principals know what we have and everybody's in line with the same orders. Then we have the camera room at Paul J. Ballou that's already there. We have a camera room officer that's there 24 hours a day. And right now that camera room officer is monitoring cameras district-wide for every school in the district during a school day. Now, we are just shy of 400 cameras. Rihanna, I think we're at 394.
394, and they're all working.
So 394 cameras, and a lot of this was done before me, so I can't take any credit for any of that, but Rihanna has done a good job with that. But 394 cameras for one person to view during the course of the day is really not realistic. It's not practical. He cannot access all those cameras on the screens that he has, and we've added screens to the office. So my vision is to have a satellite camera room office at Udall, and Dr. Dan Marquette has already offered me a space in his building, which I'm grateful for. Thank you. So a north side camera room, and that security officer would monitor Oquanaut, Manitowoc, and Udall, Monday through Friday, the school hours when the kids are in school. Then you have the camera room Paul J. Ballou, who would monitor Beach, Paul J. Ballou, and Bayview. So he would have a middle school and 2 elementary schools. The north side would have a middle school, 2 elementary schools. And the high school guard booth, which is now a set post, the same gentleman every single day, has access to cameras to the high school. So he would solely be worried about the high school. So it really eliminates a lot because, again, to have 400 cameras monitored by one person, it's just really, it's not safe. And we're not maximizing our cameras if we have one person viewing those cameras. So I guess my proposal is, if now we're down to 7 guards at the high school as opposed to 8 and 9, we wouldn't have to hire somebody else. We have that spot. We're just pulling it from here, creating a north side camera room, which would cost under $3,000 to outfit with computer monitors and hard drives and software. To have that Monday through Friday during the school, so we can kind of split up the district and maximize on our technology. Also, the district has invested a lot in the door alerts through Gallagher, which we haven't even touched the surface yet because we just don't have the resources to, again, going back to Pete, what you said is like, we have to staff this. We have this technology, but we just don't have enough staff to monitor this technology. So it's already been paid for, but we're not utilizing it because it's impossible for one person to do by himself. So if we had the door alerts at all the schools, for instance, if the door is chocked open, it'll send an alert. The officer in that room would get that alert and notify the building of a door being open. Same thing with the cameras and also the vape detectors in the bathroom. So north side room would have cover the vapes in Udall, south side would cover the vapes in Beach, and then the high school would cover obviously the vapes in the high school. So that's my vision. I guess I'm asking for some input and see what everybody thinks about that. I just think it's practical and really to maximize on what we have.
Sean, one of the things, so we looked at, like you mentioned, the things that we'd have to buy. We just bought some additional materials and are expanding some of Paul J. Ballou, putting monitors and stuff like that. So we know that that fee, we can cover that with the money that you already have in the budget. So it's not that we're going to need any more money to do that, because the IT department would be the ones to spec out and then to get buildings and grounds to do the install like we did. And then we would do the IT side of that too. So it's a very, simple. We actually are in the process. In the next 2 days or so, we'll have the Paul J. Ballou expanded monitors up for after hours.
Also, just to note, the 9 security officers at the high school were down to 7. So even if we pulled one and put them in Udall, really gives us a little bit of flexibility if we did have to add another one in when the kids come back to school. I have spoken in depth with Don Lettieri, who's been in a security office here for 20 years, and he is in agreement that prior to COVID, we don't really need 9 security officers at the high school. So I'll open it up to the floor and would love some type of feedback.
So Sean, just something I'll mention too about the door alert. So when we signed up, this is a couple years ago, the district had paid and signed up for a subscription where all the doors would be tied to the cameras. So when a door is opened, the camera would come up in that area. So those are all things that we haven't yet implemented, although Sean and I now have sat down and we're getting those things in order. But the idea is that when those things happen, the only one who sees those alerts when the doors are opening are Sean and myself. And, if we notice something, we'll happen to call over and say, hey, do you notice that door is open? And we were just thinking this would be the opportunity to give the north side and the south side kind of that equal access to say, hey, there's a door open and the camera opens right away. And that guard on the north side looks and says, okay, it's the Udall custodial door, and, there's nothing of threat and it's okay. And then they can mark, they would have to actually log in the system, cleared the alert. And so that way we have that record knowing that these things were actually looked into.
Yes, correct. And again, we have all this technology in place that the district has invested in We just haven't been able to utilize it because we just don't have the capacity to do so with one person.
It sounds like a great use of the resources and the technology, and I love the idea.
Thank you.
And in addition, with the halos right now, we're a beta testing site for A+. So I had approached them and asked them if there was a way that we could get one screen display of all the different halo detectors in the different buildings, and they're able to do that for us. So, you know, whoever is at those different schools, they would just be able to see the stuff that we set up for them, which is how we did it at the high school. The high school is only able to see the high school cameras and then some of Paul J. Blue exterior just because of the location. So we wanted to kind of keep that the same way. You know, if there is an alert, something comes up and says there's a problem with the air quality. Let's say there's an air quality issue and there could be too much chemical in the bathroom. They could radio over to the security person, get somebody from the custodial office to say, hey, can you go check that bathroom, go see what's going on? Or somebody yelled the word help 911 in the bathroom and it triggers an alert and says, hey, there might be something going on in the bathroom, please go check it out. So it just gives that little bit of peace of mind on the north side and the south side, and it's not going to cost us anything to do this for the district.
So, Mr. Tussey, do you have anything like this in your district? You're in a middle school? Is Anthony frozen? Oh, there you are.
We don't really don't have swipes. They have cameras that feed into the principal's office that they
Okay.
can view. We don't have like a security vestibule or anything like that
Yeah.
where they can look. So more than likely what happens is if a situation in the hallway or outside the door arises, they'd have to figure out roundabout what time it is, go into the software and pull it up. It's not like someone just sitting there in front of the screen and all is readily available.
So this is primarily something, you know, I guess it would affect everybody's building from the perspective that there would be more intense coverage without necessarily adding a cost. But what are your thoughts about it, the rest of you?
I mean, I know for Dan and Andrew and Anthony, you're getting the alerts on the halos, you know, that's something that would change and shift, and it wouldn't, you know, you could still get the alerts. However, you know, maybe somebody else could be checking and seeing those patterns of which students are, you know, in those areas when those things are happening. Maybe helpful.
I think it's a great idea. I've got the perfect room picked out. Sean came over, we took a look. I think it's great because it is a lot for one person to monitor all of those cameras. And it's nice to have some eyes ready to be on the ground for some things that go on.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, having the cameras to find out who did it after the fact or is all well and good. But if we can stop something real time before it gets out of hand, obviously that's a big improvement. So.
And I think as our security team becomes, you know, obviously it's much larger than it was a few years ago. And as they become more skilled in the you know, the observation and the surveillance of areas, I think it only makes us that much stronger and that much better. We've been on a learning curve for a long time. I guess, you know, the last few years we live in a very different world. So we're getting ourselves up to speed in large regard. So there's a lot to do, but a lot's been done. So I do appreciate all of your efforts in that regard.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It makes sense if we already have the technology just to reposition some people. I think regional coverage is always easier.
Okay.
Agreed.
So-
There's no cost. Good.
Sean, the way it would work with the vapes would be that if they get a detection, the guy in the Paul J. Blue would radio Beach Street and let to have the security guard go check the bathroom for a vape detector.
Right, so we're gonna have to come up with some type of procedure on how that works. Right now, I know the principals of the middle and high school are getting emails, bombarded probably with emails about these vapes. And if we had someone to monitor that, it could kind of take a little bit off of them and they can focus on other areas of the school and we could take that on. And then yes, we would either get on a handheld radio that we just purchased the last couple of years, or we can make a phone call to the security officer in that building and have them check the bathroom out. We could take it as far as going back to the cameras and investigating it, or we could try to catch it in the act. But yes, that would be the idea, is that they get all the vape alerts in real time, and they would make a notification over to the school and see if we can see if there's a problem. Again, Rihanna and I just had A+ over at Beach yesterday, and I'm still learning about the system. The gentleman yelled into the vape machine, "Help 911." And then we look at our phone and we got an alert that there was an emergency alert in the bathroom. I think that's a great resource if there's a problem in the bathroom, but we have to get that out there to the children as well, because they don't know that if there's an issue in the bathroom, if they say help 911, we're going to be alerted. They don't know that. So we're learning on the fly here. We're gathering a lot of data on these systems, and I think over the next couple of months, we'll be able to utilize them in a greater capacity.
Right. And Sean, I think something also that we forgot to mention too, I mentioned about the air quality, but these have built-in detectors. So one of the things that could be detected is something like a CO2. And, we mentioned like in different buildings and different situation, every detector is going to come up different. So we're still working on tweaking all the numbers and getting it to where they really should be. But it's given us an opportunity for even just Sean and I to communicate, to say, hey, the air quality is bad in that bathroom and cafeteria C. Can you just go there, please, and just open up the door and see if it's possible to leave the door open? Because then we know we can keep the air flowing. But in cafeteria A, B, those doors have to stay shut because of where the urinals are. So, we're in different circumstances. We also are trying to work on a way that the iPads that Sean asked us to put into each school with the guards, that they would get a notification in their building to know that there was actually an alert. So that's something that we're testing in the near future.
Brianna and Sean, just a quick question on the vape detectors. Does it give an audible in the bathroom when it goes off?
We could set it up to do that, but we didn't do that. It does a quick flash of a light and then sends the trigger. We could always put that where there's a notification, but I think the thing we have to remember with the vapes is that unless it's a large amount, you really, it might not be at that exact time that you're going to get that person, but we've seen, we had a situation in one of the schools where we were able to identify a pattern, that a particular student during a particular time, and then we were able to say, this is the student, and let's try to, not to get them caught, but just let's interject, maybe this kid needs help, maybe this kid needs something else. So, but we certainly could set it up to be, an audible alarm.
Yeah, I just think it's like a motion light at your house. That's kind of the deterrent, right? It's when that goes off, they disperse. So I just was wondering if the vape could work the same way, where it would just clear the problem for us.
That's a great thought.
It honestly, it could. And we didn't think about it because we weren't trying to be so, but it does do with the tamper, when you go over there and you tap it and somebody touches it, somebody tries to cup their hand over it and stops the airflow. Those will send audible notifications and in addition to the security for the 911. But there's a few, and even Dr. Mark would tell you, this is how we discovered they were actually functional at Udall, because it was sending notifications, audible notifications that we weren't programmed yet, but they got ahead of us.
So we'll look into this a little bit further, and Sean, you'll put together some guidelines and what that would look like within each satellite office, if you will, and we could go from there. And hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be able to roll out what that looks like.
Certainly.
And just one question that I had was, when you get a vape detector and there's 4 kids in the bathroom, is the vape detector legally proven for a search of a student?
Well, Andrew, I think it goes back to the idea of trying to develop that pattern. You don't want to accuse anybody in saying that, of course it goes off that it's that kid. But I think that if it's the same student, maybe that's in that area at that time, you might have that suspicion to maybe dig a little deeper.
Andrew, I've found most students just walking in to the bathroom rather than the vape detector. Most times I just walk in and I get it. So.
Okay. And anything like that, Andrew, we can always explore and bring to Tom for Tom Bowles for consultation if there are any questions about that.
They have worked, and They are effective. We just have to get the data and the research out there for everybody to become believers, but they do work.
Yeah. And one of the things I know you've spoken about, Mr. McAlevey, and I know that we're somewhat limited right now just because of the COVID situation, but training is key and it's come up in this meeting. So the more that we can educate the kids, I think the better off everybody is, and the staff and the faculty as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. So in the interest of time, unless anybody has a question about that, I'm going to move on to the COVID update, only because the board does have a meeting following in 14 minutes. So I just want to make sure we can cover the whole agenda. Any questions about the satellite offices before we move forward? Okay. So we continue to implement our protocols. We have been successful to date. I know the numbers in Suffolk County dropped today, but they are based on numbers that and testing that would have occurred during the snowstorm. So I don't know how real it is, but it is encouraging at the very least. We've been actively investigating methods to test for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is we are required to test our student athletes before they engage in any athletic contest, which Tim, first one is next Wednesday or the 12th? I forget the date.
Yeah, with the snow days, we got postponed a couple of days because they weren't going to fulfill their minimum number of practice days required before they can participate in a contest. So currently our first event is scheduled for Wednesday.
So we can go one of two routes. One would be for our own school nurses to test the students, and I've recommended an MOU with the county in order to affect that if need be. We've also been working with a cardiovascular diagnostic, Advanced Cardiovascular Diagnostics is the name of the office. They're associated with St. Francis Hospital in Roslyn. They are working with a number of different school districts. At this point, they come to the district and they will test virtually anybody that you want, which is something that certainly if we sign an agreement with them, they would be able to conduct the testing soup to nuts. We just have to afford them a location to do so, and we are working in that regard. I think that would be a lot easier on our capacity, our human capacity within the district to go that route at no cost to anybody. No copay, they bill the insurance of anyone that is tested. But it also gives us the opportunity to test students and staff if we wish to go down that route. They also would be willing to test community members if we would afford them the facility. So it leaves us with a lot of options. As we explore bringing more students back to the high school, there may be some value in conducting testing in that regard. And that's a question that we can discuss as well. So we keep moving forward. We hope for the best. We hope that this is behind us, with the coming of spring and we're able to move outdoors. I don't know if there's any questions about anything going on related to COVID in our schools.
Where do we stand on the frequency of testing in regard to the student athletes?
Tim, you want to field that?
Yeah, Executive Director Steve Malone, he's requiring that the high-risk winter student athletes get tested once per week during the course of their season. Since the opening day was delayed a month, they actually only have a 4-week season. So if we were to start this weekend or Monday, we would be testing 3 times during this month, because obviously the season will end by the time we have to test the 4th time.
But it does have to be weekly. And
Weekly.
yeah, and we are assuming, but we are not sure, that this is something that we'll need to continue with fall, but I guess we're all waiting to see what goes on with winter, as they are all indoor sports.
I guess my concern is that is the weekly frequent enough?
That all depends on what they're doing outside of the school environment.
Sure.
Yep.
I mean, these are high risk sports, so by definition,
Yes. Well, there are a number of districts that have already experienced, experienced COVID cases on the teams. So we're hoping for the best. And I know that the plan you've put in place, Mr. Haran, as it relates to practices, tries to minimize the number of kids that are participating at any point in time. But of course, during the contest, you can't, minimize that. And you're also, we have to be very trusting and, as a superintendent and my colleagues, I know would agree that you have to trust that everybody is doing the right thing across the county because, you're coming in contact with other districts and children from other towns. And we have to make sure we can only control what we can control here in West Islip.
Yeah, it's
They feel the same.
very delicate situation. We continue to emphasize our risk minimization strategies. Obviously, everything that's taking place in the building is carrying over until after school events, the practices, and combined with the testing, hopefully we'll be able to identify any individuals before there's any type of extensive spread. It's one of those things similar to when we started school in the beginning of the year. There's a lot of unknown, a lot of anxiety, and I know we'll continue to learn as we go through this, as we did in the school year, and modify and make adjustments and, continually be reevaluating with the health and safety of all of our students and coaches and staff and everybody as a top priority.
So I just want to back up for a second on the insurance issue. These are rapid tests, right? So.
Well, actually, if we were to do it internally, there would be rapid tests. But if we were to proceed with Dr. Frankel, who's with Advanced Cardiovascular, when Mr. Haran and Dr. Bridgman, Mr. Taylor and I met with them today, they would conduct the rapid test. But if somebody came back positive, they would conduct the PCR.
Okay, so my understanding was that different companies, insurance companies, compensated differently, reimbursed differently for rapid tests.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we deal with that? And then how do we deal with if a child doesn't have insurance?
No child will be denied.
Okay.
And the district will not encumber a fee. They'll charge it, I think, Mrs. Pilati, I think they charge it to the CARES Act.
Thank you.
Any of those co-pays that, not co-pays, any of those costs that cannot be recovered.
Okay.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Well, I hope you all have a good night.